Domestic and Intimate Partner Violence, A Road to Revolution. With historical attempts to safeguard families affected by domestic and/or intimate partner violence having been scuppered in the main by politically motivated research and intervention processes, this leaves the entire field open to transformative change, this time potentially rooted in a less revolutionary, more empirical and objective-based focus, as opposed to the historical, qualitative, highly reactionary, more politically theoretic approach, a perspective which, one, works, and two, does not explicitly set the requirement for a cultural revolution to overthrow the government and monarch in favor of socialism over capitalism. The MRA perspective, therefore, offering itself as the dialectic opposition. If westernized societies are truly engaged in a culture war, this paper could be defined as the militation of Marxian man against the abstract subjectivity and devastation of the deconstruction process, exempling the asymmetrical and often covert nature of corruption by literature, the attempt to deconstruct the Western prescribed nuclear family unit for the sake of a matriarchal revolution, culture war having permeated the institutions like a Trojan horse long ago, smuggled in amongst the founding principles of the leaders of the so-called women's rights movement. Beating once pioneering nations around the world into goose-stepping in line with the societally carnivorous ideologies, states seemingly ravaged by Hegel, watching on as political dissidents encouraged the butchering of our children for the sake of reducing internal man from concrete possibility to abstract subjectivity. The Hague and Yale University, long publishing the dangers of the Hegelian dialectic or raising the social proletariat consciousness, not surprising given its pivotal role in providing the crisis foundation for not only World War I and II, but China's devastating Great Leap Forward, the Bolsheviks' Russian Revolution, in fact several of the bloodiest chapters of human history. Therefore, globally and collectively speaking, we are currently where we are exactly supposed to be, facing civil or world war, with the leaders of the DVIPV movement having long since destroyed, deconstructed as many children's families as possible. Theoretical application came, as it always does, in the form of a covert, revolutionary-based socialist praxis, the interruption of the paternal morality, aka paternal alienation, for the sake of the conscientization process, meaning that at the point of policy conception, whether for education or the social work field, the child's best interest could have only been perceived through the Marxian lens of totality. That being, the harm to the child-family society now is inconsequential, so long as the long-term goal of feminism, matriarchy, communism is achieved. The ends justify the means yet again. So this paper will focus in on what's missing, what don't we know, what don't they want us to see. Considering the wider historical so-called scientific literature against less politically motivated research from many fields. This serves two main purposes. Firstly, to identify previously under-researched, deliberately hidden areas of academic knowledge. Second, to offer decisive routes to escaping the dialectic by identifying some of the malicious and radical policies that once removed will better safeguard the victims and simultaneously the integrity of the institution, thus eventually abating the public's ever-growing need for militation of a more aggressive Marxian manner. Merely describing DVIPV is a more contentious endeavor than ever before, especially given more recent announcements and research, whether amongst academics, lobbying or industry expert circles, or quite deliberately most viscerally in the public sphere. But what other field should be more open to discussion by all who care enough to speak? And yet to dare to counter the politically ordained narrative is beyond professional suicide. In keeping with historical Marxist socialist revolutions, this cursory issue alone provides the shocking example of a concerted and timeless emphasis on what appears to be definitional warfare over floating concepts, with costly social punishments for heresy, aka the deliberate maintenance of the dialectic. socialist agitators relying on enforced public ignorance and the inevitable Marxian agitational response, with the intent being to negatively affect or deconstruct all things societal, especially our faith in the institutions and, crucially, each other. Conflict weaved in at the point of theoretical conception, combined with policy and legislation demands, usually as a result of reactive, often disgust-related demands by the public, seemingly consistently involving phantom concepts rooted to an extreme example. It is this definitional digression where the trap lays, obviously. Diversion is secured from all victims to the Marxian oppressive bourgeois family concept rooted in Morgan's long-debunked research. In this timeless engagement, the truth is concealed by the impossibility of power and control being the tool of anything but the totalitarian, capitalist, patriarchally oppressive man and society theorized by Marx and Engels. Despite the Deleuze model's originators confirming the concept specifically relating to power and control as having been rooted in a fundamental attribution error, theoretical testing having also confirmed its abject failure as expected, causal attributes often proving to be more humanistic than patriarchal. Despite this, and not unsurprisingly, the socialists refuse to release their vice-like grip on the minds of our nation's people. Why would they? Its affectivity as a divisive socialist concept should be way beyond any doubt at this point. Marxist alienation or Nazi atomization between the sexes, a gender war, appearing to have created the required psychological chasm for the political predation of socialist revolutionary perspectives. Ideas always intended to be supplanted into now vulnerable minds and eventually serving to convert those victims into violent political revolutionary activists. Marx's noble savage, black or red, so to speak. Hitler, preferring his own reframing of this phenomena as the creation of social beings. And yet, socialist jargon removed, we very clearly see the bite model of manipulation being utilized, giving the current colloquial definitions of indoctrinations and grooming more than enough relevance and concern.